We're live.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ibrahim Hooper. I'm National Communications Director with the Council on American Islamic Relations in Washington, D.C. We've just watched a news conference by Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, who announced upgraded charges against the police officer, a Minneapolis police officer who knelt on George Floyd's neck for almost 9 minutes and led to his death. He also announced new charges for the other officers who were involved in that killing. Apparently, they will be charged with aiding and abetting a second-degree murder, and the original charges against the first officer will be upgraded from third-degree murder to second-degree murder. From my understanding, I'm not an attorney, but that can result in up to 40 years in prison. On the line now, we have Jaylani Hussein, the director of CAIR's Minnesota office. I just wanted to ask, Jaylani, what's your initial reaction to these new charges and the upgraded charges?
Thank you, Ibrahim. I would say, it's a relief that finally we are seeing some justice for George Floyd. I think we saw immediately after these men were particularly, we saw the crime happen last week. Unfortunately, we are now almost a week and a half away from the brutal murder of George Floyd. And this is what the community has been asking for. This is why we had so many people outside protesting. But I think, as many people are witnessing this moment, I think people are also recognizing the fact that George Floyd is part of a pattern. And there are a lot of George Floyds all over this country right now that have not received the justice that we are seeing today. And partially because of this delayed justice. I mean, think about all of the steps that have been taken to reach where we are today. We knew immediately from the video that he was crying out to breathe. And we saw a clear evidence on those videos, what we could see, that this was a brutal torture of a human being. And then it took the police the next day to not even mention the fact in that initial police report, not even mention the fact that George Floyd was asking to take a breath. And then we see that right after that, the examiner, medical examiner, ruling this death as being from an underlying cause. And then after that, we see this. In fact, the Hennepin County prosecutor here, who was standing with Keith Ellison today, mentioning that he doesn't have enough to make a rush judgment. And in fact, then he comes back to us on Friday and says, well, he's only going to charge the one guy, and he's going to charge him with the second degree murder charge. And then it took, think about it, it took another week, and now we're Wednesday of the second week, where it took the attorney general to be brought in, and for him to be brought in and within 2 days to charge is part, I think, the evidence, the clear evidence that many people who are watching right now need to understand. As relieved as we are of seeing these men charged, you saw how this system completely protects law enforcement from when they commit crime. They're not treated as criminals. They are treated and protected by every means of this government, from the laws on the books, from the prosecutor, from the medical examiner, and as we're seeing even from the union of the police department, not recognizing when clearly law enforcement are brutalizing people of color in this country. So I think it's a optimistically cautious also relief, because we have been in this moment before. We've been in this moment before, Ibrahim, where people have been charged, police officers have been charged, and then all it takes for legal maneuvers during the trial to acquit them. This happened in Minnesota. We had a clear case of Philando Castile, and it was only manslaughter, I believe. And it went to the courts, and the jury found that Officer Yanez was not guilty, even though, I mean, I remember that day that I did not believe that that is exactly what a jury would come back with. So in this moment, I think the protests, the calls for justice, I believe have just begun. I believe George Floyd,
that was my next question, is how do you
Right.
think the community will react?
I think many people are happy because they just could not, a lot of people could not explain, ourselves as well, but we knew why, right? But a lot of people could not explain, why are they not charged? Like why, what do you need to wait for to charge them? Because it wasn't like there was some precipitory factors that they couldn't see. This is 9 minutes of documented video where human beings are standing there saying, please give him a chance to breathe, turn him over. And as we learned today in some of the new information, that one of the officers actually said, get off his knee and let's turn him around. And the lead officer, who was on the knee, on the head there of George Floyd, he says, no, we got to keep him in this position. And that is after they found out that he didn't have a pulse. So, it's really heartbreaking. There will be a large member of our community, I think in general, will just be relieved that they're charged and will turn back the dial and go back to Monday or to Wednesday. But I think many of us who have been in this fight for so long know that this is just the beginning. Charges are just the first step.
Will the protests continue, do you think, not only in Minnesota, but nationwide?
I think so, because I think the calls have always been about the justice system. George Floyd is his tragedy, the way he was killed and the manner he was killed was through a system, and that system is still out there. And if you're a Black person or a brown person in this country, you fear that, you feel it, you see it, and for the first time, the whole nation and the whole world saw it with you in one of the most brutality way of killing a human being, a torture.
I know you have to go because a lot of things are happening in your area, but where do we go from here, do you think?
I think right now, people all over the country need to recognize we need to transform the criminal justice system in this country in policing. And we need to do it from the city level, which has a lot of power of the local police department. Your police department at home is run by your mayor, run by your municipality. And then we need to look at the counties, because counties also play a critical role in the way they apply these laws, particularly county jails, among other things. Then we need to take another step into the state and obviously to the federal. So there is a lot of work for every single one of us. And I would say in the weeks to come, we are going to fight hard. People should continue to protest. The fight is only done when we feel the system has completely changed in a way where Black people in this country, brown people in this country are not treated the way they are today by law enforcement, by the laws on the book, by the court systems, and eventually by the government that they have elected. So this is a moment in history in America where we can get this right. We have the right resources, we have the right people. If we run away from this moment right now, we are as guilty as those officers who killed George Floyd. So people need to realize that there are George Floyds in your neighborhood. There are George Floyds all over this country. And there are right now millions of Black men who are in prison today because of that type of brutality that delivered them into a prison system today, which is being profited by companies that you put stocks in, companies that you benefit from. And so this is a system we are all guilty of participating and supporting it. And if we don't wake up and don't realize we are part of the problem, we can't even begin the process of thinking as we are the solution.
Do you know if there's any rally tonight in response to this?
I think there are a couple of rallies already planned tonight in Minneapolis. I know there are going to be several more rallies organized. Already we have things going on all the way throughout this weekend and into next week. We are we are looking at in Minneapolis right now. We know the Minneapolis Police Department is under investigation. We know that the school board yesterday in Minneapolis cut ties with the Minneapolis Police Department. Businesses have cut ties. So we are right now in the middle of the call for justice. And just because what we asked for on Tuesday of last week was delivered on Wednesday of this week does not mean justice has prevailed tonight. Only what we saw today is how justice is denied, how justice is delayed. It got to a point today where the Attorney General had to come in, had to deliver some level of justice, which, you know, the family has requested for murder one. And I think, I really think murder one applies here, because this police officer knew that he had no pulse, and he continued deliberately to keep his knee on there. And they had prior relationships before. So there, I think, cause there. And so we're still waiting for the federal charges as well, which gives us a chance for them to actually not get bail.
We haven't seen federal charges yet, so yeah.
Well, I mean, this administration has failed all of us, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it's just an evidence today that the federal charges are going to wait even longer.
All right. All right. Well, thanks for joining us in short notice, and we'll keep the community updated as this case develops, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you.